YouTube, we're back with the ASW-28 from Volantex. Get your very own from Banggood. Check the links below in the description. We're just working this out. Been building it, putting it together, getting all the details figured out so we can have a really good flying plane and an awesome looking one. And where we left off last, we were getting ready to put the German flag on there because gliders, pretty much all of them are German designs. So anyway, you can see these. This is the ASH-26, and then this is the Arcus M. And so I'm just going to make one from scratch, and I'll show you how to do it. It's kind of a cool little scale detail. Got a piece of white foam just for good filming, and then this is a CD case. I suspect it's going to work well to allow me to peel this tape off as I make it. So we want to do black, then red, then this is supposed to be gold. Okay. I did a little bit of research just to make sure I did this right. And it's supposed to be equal parts. 1, 2, 3 for the black, red, and gold. And then it's supposed to be the relationship of height to length would be 3 to 5. So it's not an uncommon ratio for a flag. So I'm just going to take and cut this longer than a 3 to 5 ratio. And this is super duper easy, guys. I've done this a couple of different times, and luckily it's not an American flag I'm making. It would be a lot more work. Alright, so we'll do that, and I'm leaving the tails long because we'll do one on both sides. And by the way, guys, I'm sorry, I forgot to put that on the last video, and I probably should have done it in the video, since you've seen every other conceivable boring thing. Okay, so we'll cut that. Again, longer than it should be. And remember, this stuff has a tendency to want to relax because it's vinyl. I made that actually way too long. And I found that the best way to do it is to actually overlap, but because they're equal parts, it's actually sometimes a little bit easier to just kind of go side by side. And you'll notice it's not perfect here. It's pretty perfect from here to here. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's not, this doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a little decorative detail. But I like the little decorative details, especially the ones that don't weigh that much, because it doesn't adversely. Okay, so this is going to be a little dirty, so I'm going to actually take that and just go a little bit past. Oh, it's still dirty. I hate wasting that much vinyl tape. I don't know if you guys have noticed my hoarding tendencies. I like to think of it as being frugal. Okay, so here we go. And now you're surely beginning to understand why I use this clear plastic now. This clear plastic is sacrificial in that I can go ahead and make this flag. Now the only thing I'm noticing is that flag is kind of huge. It might be a little too big. I wonder if I don't want to do it quite so big. I don't know, I guess go big, go home, right? Except it's kind of huge, like it's overbearing. Alright, so we're going to do this a little different. Okay, we're going to do it the hard way, because why would I do anything the easy way, right? So I'm going to actually take this and stick it down here. Just let it relax, make it square. I'm going to actually cut it in half. Now this is just sacrificial, like I said. It's really hard to try to cut these things if they're not stuck down, okay? So I'm going to stick them down. I'm not even trying to put them in the right order. It doesn't matter at this point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to preserve half of it, and I'm going to cut up the other portion, okay? So what I want to do is I want to make that flag about half as big. Of course, I now have it out of order, but that doesn't matter because we're not trying to do this in order at this point. I'm just going to use the backing to help get a nice clean cut on there. Okay, so now this will help with the 5 to 3 ratio to a certain extent as well, in that now I should be able to easily get the size I need out of it, okay? without having to take any more off the rolls. So we'll cut that first one in half, and then hopefully we'll make it long enough we can just cut the flag in half. So this is the middle color, so we'll just real loosely lay that down. We want to start with the lowest color and then stack on top of it, because the yellow will show the red through. So anyway, that's my rationale with that. And this just gives your scissors the ability to cut squarely. You could even use a paper cutter if you wanted, if you were into that sort of thing. And you can just peel that off. We're going to stick this down. If it lines up, great, but I don't think it's going to line up that perfect. But that's pretty good. I might be able to live with that. And of course the black. Remember, these are supposed to be equal parts if you're trying to do a good representation. Of course, why would you do a representation of a flag that's not accurate? It's sort of stupid. And I just keep looking at my reference up there, guys. My ArcSM is my reference, I guess. Ooh. Make sure I have enough, so. There we go. Okay, cool. So now, for all intents and purposes, that's close enough for what we need, for what I want out of this project. So we can go ahead and put that stuff down and deal with it later. The thing that's nice about this plastic is you can lift it and reposition it very slightly without compromising the adhesive, which will all make better sense here in a few minutes when we're peeling it off and putting it on the plane. Okay? Okay, perfect. Alright, so now we want 3 parts to 5 parts. Okay, so this is looks like we're at, what is that, 26 millimeters. 26 millimeters. Why couldn't it have been 30, right? That would have been kind of nice. Of course, that would have been way too easy. So now we use a calculator, because that's what people that don't trust their own math do. 20, did I say 26 or 27? 27 divided by 3 times 5. That gives us 45 millimeters, okay? So 45 millimeters right there. Okay, so we're going to cut one sharp edge, nice clean sharp edge. You'll notice I'm past the plastic, but that's okay because I don't really need backing over there to get this part of the project done. And guys, I don't mean to be any particular affinity to any particular country. I just like scale details, in case there was any ambiguity about that. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little pinprick in there. Let's cut straight down. And that gives us our first flag. Okay, now we can take and measure another 45 over. Just double checking this. Yep. Another 45 over. We'll just put a little pinprick in the whatever we reach to. Boy, I didn't want to cut right there. There's like a dull spot in the scissors. Cool, now we got 2 flags, guys. That's pretty cool. Alright, so now remember we put these in a certain order, so I want to try to make life as easy as possible peeling this off. So I need to peel carefully, and I'll just actually cut it. You could hypothetically lay this sticky part down, get it positioned, make sure you like the way it looks. I want it to be somewhat centrally located. Oh yes. Oh, that didn't quite work. It was so close though. Now you could use wax paper if you didn't have like a CD case or whatever garbage you have lying around. This is literally garbage, so I didn't lose anything to have this piece. Okay, I have one other thing I'm going to do. I have one other thing that I was planning on doing anyway. But we'll go ahead and do it now because it will help with this next step. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do it in this order because it's just a little easier to do it once it's on the plane. But I plan on covering it with some packing tape. So So we might as well just go ahead and do that in this step. Make it a little easier to apply it to the wing. So look for lines and stuff, or if you have like dirtiness on there at all, and just cut that part out and just waste it. I'm not a big fan of wasting stuff, but whatever. It is what it is. Okay, make it big enough. Try not to get a giant thumbprint in there like I did. And then after you get done with removing your thumbprints, you want to make it so big that even if there were a thumbprint, it's going to be outside of the viewing area. Okay? And then what we'll do is we'll press down in the center of the workpiece, just like this, okay? And then we'll take, and we can press on that, kind of work the air bubbles out, get a nice, good, solid protective layer. And then what we'll do is we'll take this off here in a minute. We'll apply it to the plane. It's going to work great. I hope. Maybe. Just kidding, guys. I've already done this. Actually, I think this method worked better than my last method. So I'm just going to predominantly concern myself with this side. Now, if you want to try to not get finger oils and things like that, you can rub alcohol over your fingers, kind of like wash your hands in the alcohol, and then that will help a little bit, but it'll dry you out really bad, so you have to put lotion or something on afterward. Okay, so push that down. And the other thing you can do is sometimes you can take an X-Acto knife and help to relieve the adhesion between those things. You could also just tape the clear thing down if you really wanted, but I'm not going to be that lazy. I'm going to take that thing off. Just try not to cut the actual work though. There we go. There we go. Finally got the backing to release properly. And that's the one thing about using 3 different pieces of tape, you know, like we did for this, because the German flag has 3 colors, and it's just so dang convenient and conducive to working out that way. Oh yes. Beautiful. Look at that, guys. That's pretty cool, isn't it? That's an easy thing to do. And you've got your nice cool scale detail that nobody else, except for the 433 people at the end of 10 years that have seen this, will have. So anyway, I'm going to get the other one stuck on the other side. You guys know what that looks like. I'll come right back to you when we're done with that. Okay, there you have it, guys. Got the homemade German flag applied to both sides of the tail, which is pretty cool. We tried to get it lined up so it's nice and even. Of course, it's going to be a certain amount of imperfection there. It's just a little homemade thing. But also notice that horizontal stabilizer wasn't totally tight. And if you'd asked me yesterday, I would have swore up and down that it was. So I'm going to get a little bit bigger screwdriver and just torque that in there a little bit more. Be careful, don't overdo it, because these are like a wood screw that's going into the plastic. It's not a threaded machine screw, and so you can actually cross thread that plastic pretty easy. So now here that we're done with the details here, it's very tempting to chop these off now, the excess, but don't do it. Don't do it yet. I mean, you'll do it, but just don't do it yet. You'll come back to that after you're made in flight, okay? Just resist the temptation, me. All right, so now what's next? We got these holes here. These holes are where your wires are going to go in and out. Now, if you play your cards right, you won't have to do that too often, but you probably will have to, at some point, move your cables in and out. I hate taking planes apart. I'll bring planes fully assembled in my vehicles, but only because I'm crazy. Okay, so that being said, we need to cut open that hole, and I don't know the best way to do it because I can't remember what I did the first time, but we could use a hole saw, or we could just use heat, or we could use the grinder. I think the grinder is probably the easiest way. This plastic is pretty easy to cut, But see, you're in a well, so it's a little bit tricky. So I think what I'll do is I'll drill a second hole. And keeping in mind that these bends in the plastic are where you get your rigidity and strength. So I'll drill a second hole that's going to be about the same size, probably a little bit less. Then I'll use a hot knife to continue the two circles together. That's what we're going to do. And it's going to be awesome. And you guys are going to love it. Just be careful. You have a rudder wire right there. As soon as you start getting your hole started, you'll have to just know to back off completely. And my blade is not very sharp on this, so I'm going especially slow. It's tempting to try to drill that hole all the way through, but you will almost certainly hit those wires, by the way, so don't do that. Okay. Now, at that amount of pressure, I wouldn't have damaged the wires going through anyway, so I think I lucked out. Alright, so time for some vacuum action. That was really not a clean cut, guys. That's super disappointing how bad that cut. I'm not really surprised, but it's still disappointing. Okay, so we're gonna heat up this blade, whatever that stuff was on there, and melting it off. Get it nice and hot. Let me turn this fan on. So we got a fire alarm right above this area. Above all those planes, there's a fire alarm. So perfect spot to do all your melting of plastic and burning of items. Okay, see, I took this X-Acto knife and I covered it with heat shrink. Then I just cut it through there so I can replace the blades periodically. What I do is I just take the old blade, you know, when I'm done using them and they're done kind of being used, and put them back here, and instead of just throwing them out, I'll take and reuse them. And it helps because you don't want to have a dull blade, but for this it's not such a big issue to have a little bit dullness. Okay, so that'll give us tons more room. This will be a lot easier to grab stuff, but you do weaken the structure a little bit, so just do this at your own risk, obviously. And you know me, I won't recommend you do something that is going to hurt you, but still, it's kind of like you're the one that's got to be responsible for how crappy it works. So, alright, cool. That worked pretty good. Now I want to deburr that hole, because obviously the wires are going to be going through there. But to be honest with you, it's not really that sharp at all. Just rubbing my finger along there to inspect and make sure that it's not really rough, and it honestly doesn't feel that rough. I bet it will when I'm done with this. You know when they say use the right tool for the job? Yeah, that's not the right tool. So this tool, the tool I need is going to be probably one of these discs or whatever, those little grinder things. So we'll throw that in there and take care of that. Okay, now that hole is a lot bigger. Got a little bit of a sharp spot up at the top. No, it's not a sharp spot, it was just some remaining material. I really wish that stuff would clean off of there a little easier, but alright, so now if you had a deburring tool, you would just put it through there and deburr that. You can also try to use the backside of a blade on an X-Acto knife. I've got this bent one. I'll try that. Just trying to kind of take that excess material off because it just looks unfinished. Cool. Alright, that'll make it a lot easier to handle the wires in and out. Okay, like usual, we'll pause it, we'll do the other side, come right back. Alright guys, so we got the two holes of matching size, approximately, cut into the fuse to then receive the wires for the wings when required, okay? Now one thing I had to do on my first one that you guys may have to do is I had to trim the little plastic to make my wings go in and out easy. I don't think I have to do that on this one. I haven't seen that problem yet here. So what I'm going to do next is probably go ahead and reshift my focus to the wings. We never did mount the winglets, and we have a couple of more decals to put on the wings. So we're going to do that next, and here pretty soon we're going to have this thing fully assembled, but not necessarily ready to fly. So we're going to go ahead and do that next. This paint, it likes to be a problem because when you glue this on the wings, what ends up happening is the only point of adhesion is actually on the paint surface. So as soon as your paint peels off, which is quite easy, then your winglet likes to come off. So what I found that works nicely is to either sand or scrape so that you have better penetration there. So that's what we're going to do next. Now I could show you with kicker how that works, but you may get burned with a kicker, meaning it will sometimes take a little bit too much of this finish off. Now if you're going to repaint these, who cares, right? But I don't plan on repainting them. I'm going to score the surface, the face of it, and then the top, sides, and the inside. And then this we don't have to really do anything except for just apply the glue. We'll do that next. Alright, so I'll just use an X-Acto knife to do this. Score the surface. This seems like a huge waste of time if you're new at this. You're thinking, well, there's no way that thing's going to come off. If you glue it, well, you'll find out like everybody else does. They come off. They'll probably come off anyway. This is one of the few things that did come off in my crashes with the old one, the first one. Now, I have not had especially good luck with the sanding method, but it might be just sometimes these pieces are kind of awkward shapes. So what I'll do is, you see how I'm just kind of kicking up some looseness to the material, so there's places, little grooves and nooks. You don't have to completely remove the paint. Okay, if you do, all the better. But my experience has been that that's plenty, okay? Sure, you can take this paint all off if you want. You use some chemicals to do that if you want. But I just haven't had good luck doing that. And it doesn't really change anything. It's a winglet, so the idea is you want to have some exposed foam, like right there. Like right there, you got that foam exposed. Makes that little wound in the foam. And that's the stuff that'll really hold good. Okay. Just careful not to chop suey your fingers either. Alright, so now the glue that comes with this plane is actually really, it's good. And this stuff would work really nice, but I would like to keep it because I have a bottle of very similar glue called mucilage, and what'll end up happening is that I'll open this and it'll dry out. So I'll just use this big one here, and this is mucilage gel. On my first ASW-28, I don't think I got a bottle of glue, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I did. I might be remembering wrong, but this stuff sort of dries out over time, so the big bottle is quite a bit cheaper, you know, per fluid ounce or whatever you're buying it in whatever unit of measure they used. The trouble is, if you don't use it quick enough, you have to be prepared to kind of pick at it to get it to come out again. But don't worry, it will, if you do it right. So you can see it's not wanting to come out very well. Just get, usually a Q-tip or a bamboo skewer works really good for this. But you'll get down in there and just start it coming. When this stuff's brand new, it comes out pretty good. It's always got a thick viscosity in my experience with it. But the other thing is you can use that stick to help apply that to your workpiece, okay? See, it's coming out, but it's like really viscous and super sticky. And if you get this stuff on yourself, then Kicker will release it. So, I mean, don't do that unless you have to, because you'll ruin your glue joint. Remember, we're just gluing the top portion of those pieces, and you see how it gets super stringy almost immediately. It's a little bit less prone to that if you have a fresher bottle, but let me tell you something. This is what you're going to get it to anyway before you want it to hold together anyway. So even though this stuff is a little bit drier off the bat, it's going to work great still. Okay, so we'll just carry these out. And if you really want to make it glue good, you'll put a little bit on both surfaces, but you don't have to, and here's why. Because when you stick that into the wing, you can peel it out, and you see how it gets all stringy? Just have something to catch it so you can control it, otherwise it gets really, really messy. Now this stuff, if it gets messy, let it set up if you want, and you can actually turn around and